In this episode of Richard Does Not Know How Cameras Work, I'm going to be talking about the Sony ZV-1, specifically in the context of one of these talking hands type videos. This camera is really focused on YouTubers, and a lot of times that is the kind of intimate talking head type video, but this is another genre where you've got a top-down look, and you're looking at either a product or you're maybe working on a car or something. So I want to use this as an opportunity to review the camera and specifically decide for myself if I'm going to keep this camera. So let's get into some important features that go along with this. Now, this camera, one of the fun buttons to press is the automatic bokeh button, which is, I think in the manual, called a soft background. And I'll make sure that's enabled. It is enabled. However, here, since we're looking at a single flat pane, there's nothing to defocus. If I bring something closer, now we have a nice defocus background. And we'll click back over. And now it tries to keep everything in focus, although since this is technically in the macro region, you just can't get that infinite focus this close. So let's actually look at that product focus and how close we can get to an actual object. Does this count for like macro photography? So I'll push this aside and I'll discuss hitting the light source. I'll discuss what I did over Christmas with my family while I was watching TV. I had all these 3D printed previously, and we took some time to paint some Settlers of Catan board game. And it was a lot of fun, you know, just kind of idle chit-chat type stuff. So the goal here is to see how close can I get before the focus really struggles. And actually, that's relatively good. I am having issues with lighting right now. Let me grab another light. All right, while I'm holding a light here, we can kind of take a better look. And this is right where the camera's struggling with focus. My sister actually painted this one. The trees in the rear look good, but up close and in front, it just can't focus. Now I can look and see that that's about the front of this polygon that's in defocus is probably about 4 to 6 centimeters away, and then overall this is maybe a 10 centimeter long, yeah, I'm good at estimating, 9 centimeter wide object. So that means that the minimal focal distance with this is at about 14 centimeters away, and you're looking at features, well here, let me get a coin. Here's a nickel. People should be able to recognize the nickel and try to get a better feel for what kind of macro photography. So if the product showcase is set, so it's really struggling here to focus on this nickel right now, even though this is actually, if I use my hand, okay, so we're back to using your hand to help. This entire video I've been talking at the camera from behind it. I'm about one hang loose away from the camera, so that's probably about 20 centimeters. However, while this camera has an excellent onboard microphone, it is forward-facing. So why don't I do a little talking head demo? So this is a talking head. I'm about 2 hang looses away from the camera. I'm talking directly at the camera and therefore the forward directional microphone. So as another recording demonstration for audio, I've now plugged in a lav mic. So in theory this sounds better, although this is a $20 or $30 lav mic. I tested it previously in another video. I honestly don't know what sounds good because it's my voice, and who knows what their voice sounds like. I can relay this into one of my frustrations with the camera, actually 2 frustrations. One, the audio levels are controlled manually, and that does give you better control, but it's the kind of thing that you can forget. For example, I might have been saturating the audio that I've been capturing for the entire first half of the video. I think my levels were a little high for the onboard sound. And now I have to stand there and do audio samples when I switch to this microphone in order to bring it back down. Ideally, it would be an automatic audio control, or at least have that option, since it really is marketed towards people who want a camera that can just grab and go. It's designed for entry people. It's got that magic defocus background button that brings in the bokeh effect. And that, to me, screams that you're trying to help people make an artsy YouTube channel and take out all the manual decisions. All right, to continue our discussion on audio, I'm going to try to do some B-roll shots and see how good the audio is. For example, here we're chopping a knife, or yes, chopping with a knife. Let's try another B-roll clip where I haven't done anything with lighting aside from turn all my lights on in the garage, and it's incredibly echoey. So let's give it a shot. So here's a example of, like handheld talking hands. Say we're working on the car. It doesn't work. All right, bigger wrench, more better. It works now. So that's the type of image stabilization you can kind of expect. You're zoomed out and you're talking with one hand at the same time. All right, now we're using the normal image stabilization. This is the in body. I think it's a sensor-based stabilization. However, we don't have that software, and you can see that the shot looks a lot more zoomed out, even though it's the same zoom, and it's purely because we don't have that cropping. And I can do the same type of thing where we're moving around and we're pretending to be a mechanic. Secret, this is the real problem while the car isn't running. You know, those are required to make it go. All right, so the last thing that I'm asking myself is, will I keep this camera? And I'm still undecided. So while it is relatively budget, it is still a significant amount of money for what I deem a hobby. Let's try visualizing where this camera fits in. I made this fun little Venn diagram. Actually, that's a misnomer. This is not a Venn diagram because the opposing circles don't match. But this fits somewhere in here. And if you can read my terrible handwriting, this is comparing mobile phones with action cameras, with camcorders, with a mirrorless or DSLR, something with a proper lens. And really, it fits in the middle. So probably my biggest concern is price. And so in theory, mobile phones are cheaper because you already bought that. You want a phone anyway. And so it's let's not say free, but affordable. Action cameras are also quite affordable, and you could potentially buy an action camera instead. Whereas the upper end, if you get a camcorder or a mirrorless DSLR, yeah, you can get used, but oftentimes you're going to be spending more money because you want that quality. But opposingly, these, you get the better glass. So like mirrorless DSLR, you can get that nice bokeh effect. You can get a telephoto zoom. You can do macro shots. And whereas this camera
it strives for that capability, but it doesn't reach all of it. Meanwhile, the action camera has a fixed lens, so it's completely opposite sides of the spectrum. Another thing to consider is portability. I stuffed this in my pocket last night to go to the bar and show my friends, and well, I had a bulge that was just as awkward as what I had dealt with in high school when I didn't know what went in my pocket. Now, the mobile phone and action cameras definitely win in portability compared to everything else. So this can fit in your pocket, but it's not exactly comfortable. So it would work for travel. I don't think it's going to be carried with you every day. And lastly, the fact that this is marketed for video, and that's kind of, while many YouTubers use the mirrorless for video, this clearly has made some optimizations for that. You finally have the longer recording time than the previous generations of the RX100, and it's really comparable with like not quite camcorders, which can record for hours, but mobile phones or action cameras. Similarly, in regards to video, you've got audio quality, and here this is actually one of the better. It's probably right up there with camcorders for the onboard microphone. You have an audio in. And phones, at least my phone, doesn't support audio in because it's terrible. And action cameras, they try to support it, but very often you get compression issues, and that audio quality just doesn't sound good if you are using an external microphone. Similar to the lenses is the sensor size, whereas this is a 1-inch sensor. It's not quite in the mirrorless or DSLR range, but it definitely trumps the action cameras and mobile phones. You're going to get that low light performance that you just struggle with. Even with software on the modern phones, you're still really struggling to get the low light performance. So in addition to my debate, let's pick on this camera a little bit. So a lot of people had said no audio monitoring. There's only the audio in jack. Take my word for it. Sony, if you're listening, this is a new format of camera where it's a compact camera with audio. It's designed for video applications. You could put on a second jack like a DSLR would have, but I would actually say switch to a TRRS plug, and then you can use a standard headset with a microphone, or you can have a splitter and have the same quality, high quality microphone, and have a nice set of cans on the out, and you still have this small package for the camera. I might have mentioned this earlier in the video if I didn't cut it out, but I really wish you could record both from the microphone jack and the onboard microphone at the same time. This is a really good onboard mic, but it still doesn't compare with like a lav mic or a shotgun mic. However, especially with a lav mic, you might want to use the onboard for your ambient noises. Maybe your subject will miss something, and it'd be really cool to grab that. So unfortunately, I probably will still be using a smartphone to record audio purely, or a Zoom H1 in order to grab audio with a lav mic. Yeah, that would be a really cool feature, but I'm unsure of the electronics that would be required if you would need like a second preamp in order to do that type of work if it's shared between the two. One thing that I imagine is the same for all Sony products, but the menus and documentation it's pretty easy to get lost in these menus. And when it does come time to go through, they've got the little help icon, but it's almost useless. The documentation that came with the camera is a quick start guide, which normally I'm okay with, but I'm new, especially for a camera like this. It is designed for people who are relatively new to better cameras. This could be your first camera that actually has some degree of aperture control. I need some hand-holding through the manual to teach me how to use this camera in which circumstances. And there's a lot of circumstances where certain features aren't compatible with each other. Like the product showcase is not compatible with the face detection, I believe. There's other features that you can't use with the full automatic video. So this intelligent audio movie versus this movie, I believe this allows you to go to 120 frames per second and 1080. I don't know why you can't do that with the intelligent auto. You have to stick to 60 frames per second. And one of the big reasons I want to shoot in 1080 is that you can get that high-speed film, or the 120 frames per second, slow down your sequence nice and slow, and get some really cool shots.